we are going to get into it. And so let's start with how to prioritize self-care in your life and what that journey's looked like for you.
Well, I love being authentic because I feel like that's what sets us free when we can really be truthful.
Mm-hmm.
It really started writing the book, but I'd always known it. I had to really admit that I was a people pleaser and needed people, not just to be nice to me, but really to adore me, because I love feeling, I see, I see like you're connecting with that. And because so many of us, and I hope this isn't your situation, but I did not feel loved and valued as a kid. That doesn't mean that I wasn't loved, but I didn't feel it. I felt like I had to perform, and I was only as good as the last thing I had done. An A, I was a track runner, winning the track. Sure.
Oh my goodness.
And so I learned early on, if I wanted to feel others' value and get attention, that I needed to be perfect and be a people pleaser and do what other people wanted. And now, truly, I think my love language, one of my 5 love languages, is giving to other people. So it came naturally to me.
Sure.
But isn't it true that our natural gifts, if we don't temper them, become our worst liabilities?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a fine line.
And that's what happened to me. It became to where I almost lost myself in my desperation to be adored and to feel loved. I realized that was a dead end road, and it really was writing my book, Saving Summer. Even though it's not completely true, I based it on scenes in my life, and it's a novelization of my life. And so I got to tweak things, but it really was pain that I had suffered. And when I embraced it, here's what I found: that the little girl, Suzy, and Summer's in the book, inside of me, she's a warrior. She is, I'm at school, so they're getting my trash, but that's okay. Hi, Pacey, you're on camera. I found that little Suzy, and I was hard on little Suzy. She needed to be loved, and she would be loud, and she would cry, and she would feel things. And I wanted to be stalwart and steady always. But she was an all-star. She's the one who made me never lose my joy, know that I was going to be okay, stay in there and do my very best. And I fell in love with my inner little girl. And I realized that I like being around myself. I like who I am. And then that gave me permission to not give myself away at my own expense.
Yes.
Because I love how we're connecting. I had given away at the expense of myself. And that's not healthy. That's insecurity.
No. It is. It's insecurity. It's codependency, all the things that I have unraveled in my work and my healing and therapy over the years. I do relate. I mean, I knew academically that my parents and surrounding people loved me, quote unquote, as a kid, but the way I was shown love, the way I was affirmed, was through performance. So the better I performed, the better I showed up, the more A's I got, the more track meets I won, all those things, then the better I was affirmed and loved. And the minute I wasn't showing up that way, I was no longer affirmed as having value. And not just in my family, but also my faith space was a very performative space. And just the people that were around me, it was all performative. And it was based a lot out of insecurities of people that I was being raised by, false, dogma in the faith space that I was in. I mean, there was a lot of narratives going on, but it was perform, perfection, be better, be better. So consequently, you grow up as an adult. And thankfully, I met my husband when I was in college, and the first person who loved me for exactly who I was. I didn't have to show up as anybody other than who I was. I didn't, and that was clear, very clear from day one. And it changed my life. And I'm thankful for that every day. But even within that, there was still just a lot of work to be done that I didn't really get to for a long time. Because it was just innate within me to show up, perform, made me a great employee, made me a great volunteer and all these things, but it wore me out. It wore me out at the cost of my own health. And I came to a point, about 4 years ago where I had to like, whoa. And my husband's like, I've been waiting for you to get here. It's time to really get serious about this. And he has his own trauma background. And so we kind of really went to work at it hard about the same time, because we're just like, it's time to live. About 5-6 years ago, kind of before I hit the wall, I was just like, I should be more content than I am. I should be happier than I am, more at peace. And when I say happy, I'm not talking about moments. I mean, because we all have those moments of joy. Yeah. But I'm talking about that space of contentment. So I know what you mean. And you said something so beautifully earlier about falling in love with yourself. And because I think that is beautiful. And when we can do that, that's when we see our value. And then self-care becomes a non-negotiable because we know we're worthy of it. And that's why we talk about embracing our layers on this podcast, because you've got to embrace all those things, all the layers. You don't have to love them all, but you got to acknowledge them and honor them for the role that they played and what you learned from that, for better or for worse, in order to accept all the parts of yourself. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
I love what you said. I feel like I've known you forever. Self-care becomes non-negotiable. Yeah. And that's the beginning of really valuing and caring and looking in the mirror and saying, I got your back. Yeah. I'm going to take care of you. We're going to do this together. Not needing what I coined performance-based security. I bagged my little girl. I had to give 110%. And you know what? No, I still work really hard and I still try my best, but you know what? I can quit and I can say that's enough for tonight. And there was a time that I really couldn't. I can self-care and not feel guilty, because that's what happened to me. And I love how you said, the A's and the track meet. I knew to get the most attention, which is what I needed, was I had to perform. And it is a false god, because you're never gonna be enough. And then, but these people then expect the standard. So when you get healthy and you say, I'm going to self-care, I'm going to value myself, that there's a kickback. And they not meaning to, because no one means to do it. They're just trying to survive themselves. Right. Overcome their own adversity. But that's uncomfortable when people are like, wait a minute, I'm used to you basically over functioning. And I'm thinking, that was me, but I'm not going to do that at the expense of myself anymore. And I am you want to talk about peace? I have had so much peace because I'm not driving myself so hard. Yeah. It's a relief. Relief. Yeah, absolutely. And that goes nicely into boundaries. I mean, you basically had to, and that's tricky. And because people don't always, you find out real quick when you start getting healthy and you start setting boundaries, who the people are that are truly for you, and that's who the people are that don't want to face their own wounds and aren't willing to go down that road with you, because at the cost of them having to face their own wounds. And simply, sometimes they liked the way you were showing up for them before, and they don't have. Yeah, exactly. I know. I mean, you're making their world a lot easier. You're not going to do that in so many ways. And so you find out real quick, and that can be very difficult, but also you find out who your people are. Would you say that's true for you? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What I realized is, if I have to be controlled to if you have to control me for me to be your friend, if I'm only worthy and that you can control me and I can do everything you need, then you're really not my friend. And it's not a healthy relationship. And I'm not bitter. I'm not angry, but that's not where I want to be anymore. I really, and again, I love how I was created, the cheerful, spunky, never give up, wanting to please. That is so attractive. Now, tempered, that needs to be tempered, right? Because we talked about your best assets become your worst liabilities. But people were used to that with me. And when I didn't show up that way, I lost some people really important to me, but yet I still love them. And it's okay because I feel so peaceful and confident that I don't need their attention to be able to feel good about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, because if we are placing our value in what we do and how we perform, that is tenuous, and it will come, you'll just be a seesaw your whole life. You cannot place your value in that. And that's why I ask people when they come on the show, I'm like, I want to introduce you by your character traits. We'll get into what you do and how it's impactful and helpful and all that. But let's start with who you are, because that's you're valuable no matter what. And if we can root ourselves in that, and then if we are using those attributes of ours to inform what we're involved with and what we care about and what we do, then we will be content. So many times we don't do that. And we'll get into that when we talk about expectations. But yeah, it's that finding out. And it is hard. I don't want to minimize, but it's also, it becomes very clear you are surrounding yourself and people are choosing to be in your life that genuinely care about you and are happy that you're healed, are happy that you have found this peace. They want you to find this contentment, and they want those things for themselves too. So it just makes...
Well, that's what everyone wants.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
But you got to be willing to do the work to get there. And I think that's where there can be a difference, because you don't just land there. You've got to be willing to dig and sit in the yuck and heal to get there.
Yeah. I like to say that getting healthy is painful, and people don't get healthy because they don't want to look at and they don't want to look at themselves. I mean, it's embarrassing.
Yes,
I'm embarrassed, not really, but when I really realized, wow, you really need other people's attention. This is something that has dogged you your whole life, and allowing people to hurt your feelings. And when I really realized the depth of that, and then the pain to dig out and the uncomfortableness of admitting that, and then having people respond poorly when I didn't act like they thought I should, that was painful. But the other side of it is freedom.
Yes.
Right?
It is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And not to have people be only as good as the last thing you've done. That is a dead end road that there's no peace in ever.
No. And it's exhausting. And it's because you're trying to constantly keep up with that, because, I think that's, when you go on these journeys, you're like, why do I show up this way? Why? And you start digging into it and get to the root of it. For me, I had to really step back and be like, okay, I've got to, and this was from my therapist. I didn't do this all on my own. I had to get into therapy to really dig in. And I tried it a couple times in my life, but I think I got to this point where I was like, I'm going to change this narrative no matter what I have to do, because I just don't want to exist like this anymore. But I had to my therapist really challenged me. She's like, I want you to really take a neutral stance as to the things you did. And I want you to get into the why. What was happening in your world and your atmosphere and the spaces that you were in, the people who were around you, responsible for you at the time. What was happening in that space that was creating these survival mechanisms that you created, including the performance. And because then that's going to allow you to get in and dig into that. And you talked about earlier when we were talking about little Suzy, I had to do some serious inner child work. I had to get into inner Melissa, at 4 and 6 and 8 and 10 years old, and really talk to her. And she talked back to me too. And that sense, if you look at inner child work, at one point she's like, thank you for doing this. I'm so thankful that you did this for us. That's that's one of the most powerful healing things that you can do for yourself, but you got to be willing to go there, and that's the thing.
that makes me teary because hearing you talk about little Melissa, I can see little Melissa is a beautiful little girl, cheerful, ready to go, ready to have fun. And you valued her. You told her it's okay. You did a good job. You allowed her to heal a little. Like, because I know this because I allowed little Suzy to not have to be so perfect.
Yeah.
So then it becomes congruent,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Right? Because big Suzy, I'm telling you, she's going to drive us because we're going to perform. We're going to get it done. And little Suzy's like,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just love hearing you speak because here's the beautiful thing about being a worker, and you're a track runner. So I know you're a worker, and we're not afraid of hard work.
Right.
So we're going to do the work it takes to heal.
Yeah.
And I don't think other people realize when you start and you really look at yourself. I'm saying for myself, I had to say, wow, that's unattractive. Mm-hmm. That is really unattractive. And I forgive myself.
Sure.
I was doing the very best I could, but I didn't want to say that.
Right.
And I think you are a worker. So I see you as just going to a new level as you really embraced sweet little Melissa.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things that it was so informative. And when you can understand where it is you came from and why, and what kind of inspires these things behind these behaviors, then you're going to be aware of them because they'll come up again. You're going to be in circumstances where they're going to come up again, but you recognize them when you see them and you can catch them. And I think there's a lot of power in that. It's very empowering knowing that you've got that skill set and that you can do that. I mean, I think that's so true. This is going to be a really interesting one to hear your answer because you have had, trauma in your life that probably really informed this, but taking care of your emotional health as much as your physical health. Talk to me about your journey with that.
It's very interesting when you really self-reflect. And if you're really honest with yourself, you'll find out what was really going on. Mm. And I was a child, so I couldn't do much. But the pattern of letting people hurt me was not healthy. And somehow in my mind, I felt like that maybe I wasn't worthy. And that's why I wasn't treated as well. Now, that's a lie. And I knew that cognitively, but emotionally, I didn't. So when I realized authentically how much people hurt my feelings, it was shocking to me. Because think about that, Melissa, I'm giving all my power away. I'm becoming a victim to everything. Now, I don't like to see myself ever as a victim. So that was then uncomfortable for me. And so that I was like kind of hiding from that. Yeah. But what I realized what I needed to do was I needed to have a paradigm shift and not allow my feelings to be hurt all the time. But how do you do that? So this word came to me. I don't even know where it came from. This word came to me. I am unoffendable. And I remember thinking, why do I have to be offended? So someone treats me poorly. That's on them. Why do I have to feel bad that you are not right to me? Right. I don't have to feel bad. And then I'm an English teacher. So then this quote's on my board because I love Rudyard Kipling because I love the If poem. It's one of my favorite poems. And I know you have that up in your office.
Yes, I do. I've got it hanging on my wall.
I just love that. And he says, and it's just such basic common sense, but he says, I prefer to think the best of everyone. It saves so much trouble in the end. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, okay, these people that are hurting my feelings all the time, are they really trying? Probably not. They're just working out their own issues. So it had to be a forgiveness piece first. Mm-hmm. And then I remember and then I remember the week I thought, I'm going to be unoffendable. I'm just going to choose to be unoffendable. Okay. And I'm a worker. You're a worker. Yeah. You know workers. And then that week, everything offended me. I got a jury. No, it was hilarious. I got a jury duty summons that they had my nickname and and they wouldn't listen to me. And they were trying to make me do jury twice. I'm like, I'm offended. And when I realized, Melissa, I was offended all the time. And then all of these other things happened that just like, even like as a teacher, my students didn't turn in their essays that I had worked 3 weeks teaching them. And then all these students didn't turn them in. Well, that offended me. And this offended me. And you know what? I started saying I'm unoffendable. And so what that did for me was that took away all the power of having my feelings hurt all the time. And that was really what was handicapping me. Now, because I'm cheerful and spunky and fun and feel things, I feel things deeply. And growing up, that part of me, I call her little Suzy, I wanted to run away from her because I never knew when she was going to start crying. Now, big Suzy, she was always ready to take over. But really the beautiful part was the little Suzy side. She's the one that made me know I was never going to be a victim, that I was a warrior, that I could overcome the trauma and have triumph. She always believed, right? And I needed to grow her up a little bit and temper, like I said, big Suzy. And then I realized I don't have to get my feelings hurt all the time. So I chose to forgive everyone. And now it's like a new life.
Yeah.
Because my feelings are not always hurt.
Yeah.
And I'm embarrassed to admit I spent my life feeling victimized. Yeah. And I hated that because I didn't see myself as a victim.
Right.
But I was feeling like one. So now I don't see that. So if someone says something, even to my students, like I had the student who thought that we're doing 1984, and he thought that it was a fascist was not Stalin. It was, and I said it was Hitler and Stalin. I said, you know what? I'm unoffendable. Let's look it up. I could be wrong. And it ended up being that we were both right. It's white fascist because communism's right. I said, look, we're both the same. But you see, can you imagine, Melissa, what a better teacher I became when I did not take that student's comment personally? I said, let's look it up. Right. So it was all a shift for me. And that freed me from feeling sorry for myself all the time, which led back to being really in a struggling parent relationship. Yeah. Right. I mean, then you're like, everyone's, what was me? What was I? Then I'm feeling, it's horrible to feel victimized. Mm-hmm. So that has been my journey. And I have worked hard on it, which I know you have too. Yeah. But the peace I feel and the relief and the joy that I have. I'm so thankful.
Yeah. And that shift that how that makes your whole body feel too, because if you're not dealing with those things on an emotional and mental level, you feel it in your body. I mean, it stores up in there. So it changes your whole essence. It changes how you feel. I know for me, because of what I wasn't dealing with emotionally and physically, it was showing up, mentally and emotionally, it was showing up physically. And it was showing up in ways that weren't pleasant. But when you start taking a hold of those things and shifting those narratives, and I think it just goes back to that, doing the work to figure out the root system of things and, forgiving yourself and like, that wasn't so great, and being accountable, but also not beating yourself up, because we can be, and take off like, okay, we're going to make a shift now. Given the circumstances that we were in, that makes sense, but we aren't there anymore. And I think we also have to tell our nervous system, we're not there anymore. We don't need to go into fight or flight in these scenarios. We're not there anymore. But that takes some time and retraining too. But it does. It changes your the whole way you feel about yourself.
I love how you said it takes retraining, because I feel like I'm retraining myself all the time. I also love you talked about your body feels it. The body keeps score. Mm-hmm. Body keeps score. And if we hang on to any of that darkness from our past, or what people did, or how we felt, or carry it in, it only hurts our nervous system. Yeah. And now I look at myself, and I mean, I said this to a friend, and she thought I was crazy. She didn't mean it, but she was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But I look at myself in the mirror and I say, you did a great job today. You overcame a lot today. Good for you. Wow. Tomorrow's going to be a great day. In fact, every day, and this is funny, it's a good though. I get up and I say, today's going to be a great day, and I'm going to do something great is going to happen to me. One. And then I say, and I'm going to do something great for someone else today. So I'm looking for the great thing So you're the great thing that happened to me today.
Oh,
I love being on with you, but I was able to stay after and help a student who needed some help. That was a great thing I did today. So I'm looking for that. I'm ready for it. I am excited. My whole mindset is we're going to overcome the adversity. And just like you, I loved you. We were both working together with the tech issues. We could have gotten discouraged. We could have gotten frustrated. No. We have to go to 5 different platforms. We'll figure it out. And look at us. We're talking out because we're not going to get upset. I have self-care now that I'm not going to do that to myself.
Yeah.
That's not nice. And I don't, why do I have to feel bad if the tech wasn't working? We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think that's it. And I will tell you, and I told you this earlier too, when we were working through this is something that I've adjusted in. Like this stuff used to just really throw me because tech's not really my strong suit in life. But I just am like, we'll just keep at it and we'll figure something out. And I know because I've had to work through it before. And so sometimes it's just being willing to work through those things and those experiences that you become like, and you also know it's not the end of the world. And I'm not judging, like, I'm not worried about what you think about me because we've got tech issues today and you're not, and vice versa. So that has a lot to it too. When you can release that worry about what other people think of you and you're just, but I love what your self-talk every morning. That's powerful. And that sets the tone for your day. It sets the tone for how you show up in the world.
Well, it does. And it's how I show up with my students. And I always like to think, and this has been a process, the day I became an effective teacher was the day I didn't need to be liked. So the struggle, like you and I with the technology, you didn't need me to like you and think, because if I were judging you, and of course I wasn't, you weren't judging me because it was my the speaker that wouldn't work. And thank you for being graceful, but we don't have to be liked. Mm-hmm. And when we stop doing that, then we're free to actually see what great things can happen to us today.
Yeah.
Or what great thing we can do for someone else because it's not about us.
Right.
Hallelujah. I don't want everything to be about me. It's not about you and I winning our race. I just have to ask you.
Yes.
What was your race?
I ran the 100, 200, and 400. And
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh my gosh. But I will say too that, even in that, I worked myself to the bone to an injury. I ended up getting a self-manifesting just overwork injury that ending my college part of it pretty early. But the shift though, that shift in narrative, that shift in thinking is so powerful. And you said something, when you get to the point where you don't need everybody to like you, when you're not out there performing, you're a better version of you because you're not, you show up as you are because you're not afraid to.
It's so true. And as a teacher, I wasn't always that way. I needed the kids to adore me, but I always felt sick about it because I knew it wasn't right. I just didn't know how to get past it. Yeah. And I'm not even hard on myself, but the kids can see that. They can smell it. They can, and they're not impressed. No. They know that you're really insecure and you're just really there to teach. I'm not saying they don't know that, but it's all about you. Right. And it's not attractive. And I'm not even hard on myself that I was that way. I forgive myself. I think you're the same way, Melissa. Yeah. Every day I've tried to do the very best I could. Right. Some I've done better, but I've always tried to self-reflect and make myself, which I love your version. And I've said this many times, a better version of myself. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And I think you do. You have to get to that point where you're like, I was working with the best that I had at the time. And I had to get to another space where I felt like I was ready to dive into why. But at that point, would I do it again? No. But based on where I was, I get it. I understand it, but we're moving forward now and we're going to, and we're be a better version of ourselves now. But, I always, and we always learn.
Well, and aren't you teachable? Aren't you? I know you're. I can see that. I think we're kindred spirits. I am teachable too. Yeah. And I love that I have the growth mindset. I can do it. We can figure it out. We can, and this is what makes people be empowered because you're believing, like as a teacher, the best, you're believing the best in me, Melissa. I'm believing the best in you. I'm believing the best in my students, and we will get better. And I don't have to feel bad that that's the best I could do at the time because I say phenomenal. You were rocking great. I'm going to say that to you too. So I think it's a whole paradigm shift that frees you to be grateful for what you've overcome and to give yourself a break. Because I feel, and I think you probably feel the same way, I would never be as hard on myself. I would never be as hard on someone else as I was on myself. I would never put the expectations on another person I put on myself. And why? Why would I not extend to myself how I treat other people? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine?
I know, but it's what we do. And a lot of times, my therapist gave this to me as an exercise. And she's like, I want you to talk to yourself each day in the mirror, the way you would talk to your friend, the way you would talk to your daughters, and practice that. And it's uncomfortable at first, but yeah, it was a practice, and it's, because and that really gets your attention on your self-talk too. It really makes you realize your self-talk and the number you're doing on yourself emotionally and mentally, what that and how that makes a difference. And this goes really, and what we've already really been talking about this, but how we can support ourselves and other women and living unapologetically. It's by doing exactly what we're doing, living unapologetically, owning our stuff, being accountable, and moving forward, but being confident and knowing that I don't need to impress anyone. I'm just going to, because that attracts people. People, when they see people acting that way, they want that too, because we as women don't historically do that for ourselves or for each other. And we're better together. We're better in community. But I think when women see other women doing that, it invites them into that. And so have you noticed that shift in your life and in your relationships in that unapologetic piece?
I have. And I notice now the people that are my people, we are so supportive and we're so for one another and we're so loyal and we really can conquer the world. It's so inspiring to me. I've also noticed something that's helped me and with my women friends, and I love friends. Yeah. Friends have always been very important to me. And I'm very thankful that I've been blessed with good friends. But I have also said, and maybe I think your therapist, I think everyone needs to see your therapist. So I want to this. Something else that came to my mind is I was not going to let my friends or myself ever say anything negative about themselves. So let's say they would say, "Oh, I'm like the technology." If you would have said, "Oh, I'm dumb." Now it is true, technology is a challenge, but I keep getting better.
Yes,
right? Okay, yes. And I keep getting better. But I am not going to say anything because perception is reality. I'm not going to say anything negative about myself. And so that self-talk and the little girl in the mirror, or now the big girl in the mirror, I give myself my due. I'm also authentic and I am authentic in the sense I can handle the truth. So I know what I need to work on. And I may say, we're going to work on this, but I know we're going to get better. So I tell my students, if they come in and they are struggling, I'm a terrible writer. I might say, no, you're not. You just haven't practiced enough. No. Writing is practice and hard work. And you're a hard worker and you're teachable. I won't let any of my class, they know better, to ever say anything negative about themselves or my kids. Yeah. Or my kids, because now, but I'm authentic. So if we're having a struggle, I'm having a struggle. This is what's going on, but I know it's going to get better because I am teachable and I am a hard worker and I'm compassionate. I'm benevolent, these things, and I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to learn. So that is a whole different level because then you're always being, I feel like with your friends, your team that's elevating all of us.
Yes. We're all lifting each other up together. I think, yes, that's so powerful. And there's a saying about that, and I'm not remembering it right now, but it's that vision. And I love what you said too, because I think what we are guilty of doing is we personalize behaviors or things instead of saying, I am stupid. It's like, well, was that choice stupid? maybe I can own that, but I'm not stupid. I just made a poor choice. Or did I overreact in that moment? Probably. I was over sugared or underfed, or it really, triggered an old thing. But that doesn't, it doesn't, so you don't take on that as an identity.
Exactly. And I'll do better next time.
Yes.
I'll do better next time. And the growth mindset really gives you confidence that you will do better next time.
Absolutely.
And you and I will, because we're workers.
Right.
We know. And we
Right.
self-reflect. So we don't have to feel bad. Of course we made a mistake, right? It's okay.
Yes.
Because we don't have to be perfect.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not where our identity is rooted. And that makes all the difference in the world. And but I love how you talked about, with how you guys do that with each other. That's so powerful when you have that kind of support group and you can show up for that way for each other. There's so much power in that. I love that. The importance of coming back to your why and your values in everything you do. Talk to me about that journey for you.
Well, my why is I've always wanted to better myself. And I feel like bettering myself betters other people. So I am always looking for how can I be a better friend? But still, how can I be a better friend to myself? And because I can't really be a better friend to anybody else if I'm not a better friend to myself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I'll have nothing to give.
Right.
So that's boundaries. So I've had to learn to say no, because I would like to do everything. I would like to do everything. I really, that's just my personality. But I also know that I'm not effective and my best version of myself. That's when I find myself getting to, maybe I don't respond as well. And then I'll say, well, because you're trying to do too much. So let's see how we can tweak that. So my why is I want to take what has happened to me, the trauma, and I want to use it as triumph. And I want people to know, like my students or my readers, whatever's happened to them, it wasn't good. I'm not saying it's good, but it can be used for good, and they can become victors, never victims. And it can actually be used for their destiny to help people. That's what you're doing. Your struggle, you've used it for good. The trauma has been turned into triumph, and now you're using it for good to help people. That's my why. Yeah. That's what my students know. That's what my kids know. And I'm not saying my life's perfect and it's not full of pain, but I believe that today's going to be a great day and something great's going to happen to me today. And I'm going to do something great for someone else today. And then I get up the next day and do it again. And then I become a better version of myself. Yeah. But I'm not hard on myself if I haven't made it. Because that's okay. It's okay. Every day I get a little bit better. I'm like, wow, you did a great job today.
And sometimes great job is just getting up and facing the day. I mean, I think it's okay to say that too, because we are nuanced. I love that because it doesn't mean that something else won't happen in the mix that was uncomfortable. It just makes room for that great thing to happen. So you're not derailed by the hard thing. Because I think sometimes we let the hard stuff derail us, and we don't leave room for all of the nuance. And we can do the flip side too. We can be toxically positive where we don't acknowledge the hard stuff and heal from it. And that's not a good place to be. But I think it's just being that open to it all. And that's because that's how the world works. It's not going to just give us one thing at a time. That's just not how it goes. But you can't wall off one and hope to still experience the other. You got to be open, but starting with that mindset of regardless of what happens today, I expect that I will do something great, and that something great will happen to me. I expect that regardless of what I'm facing today. And I think that changes everything.
Changes everything. And I love how you said you can't wall it off, because for a time, because my natural bent is cheerful, I just pretended like that nothing was wrong. And what that does all of a sudden is if you don't own it, I thought I'd owned a lot, but I had a lot more to own.
Yeah.
That created rage in me. And then I would respond inappropriately. And then, because I was taking it personal, I was getting my feelings hurt, and I was trying so hard and it wasn't working. And then this side that was needing to heal would be full of rage. And then I would explode on someone. And then I'd feel guilty and feel worthless and feel horrible. And it was this terrible cycle.
Yeah.
So that was put to the test today. And I'm on such a high because it went so well. So I had a very busy day today. And I had a doctor's appointment this morning before school and then worked all day. And then I was so excited for the podcast. And so my sweet husband, I said, hey, I'm going to try to go to, I love to exercise, but I don't usually get to exercise as much as I would like. Cause I still love to exercise. So I said, hey, why don't we want to go to the pool? And I'm planning. So and then you can drop me off at the doctor's appointment, walk the dog, and then we'll go and then I'll take the car, blah, 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 blah. And it was going to be great, but I didn't leave a lot of room for margin because I also love to sleep. Right.
Me too.
and so he was going to swim, he said, but then I was in the pool and I didn't see him. And I started to panic because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to be at the doctor and then I've got to be at work, the school, the kids are waiting for me and I'm teaching classes. And when you're a teacher, there's a panic. They show up whether you're here or not.
Right.
I mean, on the clock. Yeah. And so, but then I started doing the self-talk because all that I've learned, but really the self-talk is putting it into practice.
Right.
Okay. I'm not going to fear. I'm not going to fear. I'm going to be unoffendable. He's not trying not to be here. Maybe something happened. And then my mind was like, oh my gosh, maybe he's dead. I was like, no, that's reasonable. And so I did all the self-talk and I thought, well, I'm going to do what I need to. I'm going to get out and get my shower and find out what's going on. And he was just there. He had gotten out of the pool and I hadn't seen him and he was just waiting in the car. But here's what would have happened, Melissa. Had I not worked on myself and really let my little girl who'd been so hurt growing up, and that's valid. Yeah. And that's not to minimize the hurt. The hurt and pain was real, but she's an overcomer. She's a warrior. I'm a warrior. Suzy's a warrior. Then that's when the rage would come out and I would have just unloaded on him. Well, because he did shift the plan because I thought I was going to see him swimming. So then I didn't take my phone. So then I felt like I was at the pool with no phone. No, what am I going to do? And he's not there. Well, no, he shifted. He didn't tell me. But that's okay, because he's there waiting.
Right.
And everything was fine. And when we were driving to the just an appointment I had, I was so pleased with myself because I didn't react.
Yeah.
Because of all the work I've done to be unoffendable.
Yes.
It wasn't personal. He decided he wanted to sit in the car and not swim as long. It's okay. I can be flexible. And sometimes when you've been hurt so much and you're such a people pleaser, you're not flexible because you're really on the verge of collapse at any moment because you've pushed yourself too hard, right?
Yes. 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 And that's such a good example. And I can relate to that so much. And I think it's one of those things too, like I'll know, like if something like last night, our Wi-Fi went out like for no good reason. And it ended up being us being around our neighborhood. It wasn't just us, but it went out at like 9:20. I was watching a show that I really wanted to watch and I was really irritated because we've got everything's wireless here. And so then I started going, oh my gosh, I've got 3 recordings tomorrow. What if the Wi-Fi, and then I started to cry. And then I was like, what is happening here? Why am I so instead of just continuing down that road, I knew to stop and like this. And my husband's like, why are you getting so amped up about this? And he was kind of half asleep, half not. So he was a little like groggy, grumpy kind of thing, but he posed the question that I needed to hear of like, what is happening here? And then I was able to sit down and kind of reflect, okay, this is why I got so amped. These things have happened. These things need to be worked through. That triggered this, and I was able to see the trickle down effect. I went into my room. I grabbed a book. I started reading. I calmed down. So I say all that to say like, I understand that. And it's so interesting when you can track back because you're able to catch it, instead of just being reactionary. But when you're in that kind of a state where you're basically in hypervigilant mode all the time, you're going to make sure you catch the next bad thing that's coming your way. It's not going to get you. And you're also going to perform at a level that no one can be disappointed in you. There's no room. There's no room. No margin. No margin at all.
No margin. And I love what you said. I'm telling you, we are so similar. We could go out and we could just talk for 15 hours. What I was doing, because I was swimming, and then I was saying, okay, what's the core of this? What's the core? Do you know what, I don't want to disappoint my students and be late. And I also didn't want to miss your podcast. And I could see this ripple effect of all of this. But then the real core, which is, you alluded to it too, was when I was a little girl, I was left a lot. I was left. Mm-hmm. And I had to find a way to, as a little girl, to come out of really difficult situations. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, but then I had to say, I'm not a little girl anymore.
Yes.
And I will be able to get an Uber. I'll be able, I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim.
And I'm not there anymore. I'm not in the same situation. I am safe here.
Exactly. So I don't have to have that panic, and then I don't have to respond poorly. Then this person that I know he's a neighbor, but he moved, so he's not really a neighbor anymore. I thought, well, if worst comes to worst, because I didn't have a phone or anything, I can go ask him of the pool if I can use his phone, or I'm going to be okay. Just like you thought, well, I can go to the library maybe and do my podcast.
Exactly. And that's what, by the time I got in bed, I'm like, just walk to Starbucks and plug in my earphones. I mean, there's ways around. I mean, it's not perfect, but I can find, there's solutions. No. And
Victorious, aren't you an overcomer?
Yeah.
Aren't you proud of yourself? Because only I know what can come out if I allow myself to go down paths of feeling like a victim, mm-hmm. or feeling sorry for myself, mm-hmm. or and I don't want to be that way. You know what? I have too many. I have too many, waste my energy or to tax my nervous system, right? Yeah. Why would you don't want the body does keep score. Yes. And so I'm not going to allow myself to get frustrated. And do you know, Melissa, I got to everything. I got here before school so I met with a student.
Mm-hmm.
And the student left 10 minutes before I got on the podcast. Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
They could have gone better.
Yeah. I know. Isn't it?
Yeah. What if I would have wasted it in the pool screaming at my husband? I would have felt like, because it wasn't his fault. He was phenomenal.
Yeah. And what a terrible way to start your day.
Oh,
it just sets the wrong tone, for how you want to go to your day. That's such a good example. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that so much. Living out of your own expectations versus others, you've made that shift. You have made that shift to where you are right now. At what point, and you talked about for years, at what point in your life, is this something you've done recently, or what point in your life where you just hit that point of like, I can't live like this anymore. This is not working. This is no longer sustainable. I've got to change the narrative here.
Oh, I love that question. I love your questions because I always wanted to get past this. I never wanted to be the type of person that's screaming at my husband because I was feeling scared or nervous. I always was able to identify the fear, the terror, but I didn't have the skill set and the health to not let it get the best of me. Mm-hmm. It happened after I wrote Saving Summer, and I have a copy of my Saving Summer. The little girl, she's not me, but she looks like me, and it is fictional. But when I put that in to a fictionalized form, there were a lot of people in the book that I got permission for to fictionalize it. And so I thought I'd covered all my bases, which I like to cover my bases. I like to be kind. I like to I care about people. I try to have the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. So I thought I had done a really good job. And not a lot of people, but some people gave me a negative kickback. Melissa, if you think about my personality, it was the worst thing that could have happened to me because it's what I tried hard my whole life to not have happen. I don't want to be misrepresented. I don't want you to think I'm bad. I don't want you I want you to give me the benefit of the doubt because I really need you to like me. I mean, or at least respect that I wouldn't try to, whatever. And it was the best thing that could have happened to me because you know what? I healed because the uncomfortableness of having to experience what I was pretty much running from my whole life.
Yeah.
Oh, made me stronger. It made me more compassionate. It made me more understanding. And the people that have been angry with me, I pray for them. I'm not mad at them because Saving Summer does two things. The book, if you worked on your healing, then it helps you a greater level. And I'm not saying these people haven't worked on their healing because that's not for me to judge.
Right.
But it's not. But there's also people that because I've done a lot of book clubs, and they'll say, I was angry because, this in your book. And I smile and I say, yeah, it was hard for me to write. I was kind of angry about that too. Do you know what I mean? So I'm validating because I don't have to be offended. So I don't have to be offended by whatever. Does that make sense? Because
absolutely.
I say, go ahead and write your own book. Right.
Yeah. But I love what you said there. You validated how they were feeling. You weren't defensive, because that's what happens when we care about what people think. And because I was the defensive queen of the world. I mean, I always felt under attack. Yes. I know. It's amazing. But when you are able to let that go, you can both make room for that's where they are right now, but also be like, oh yeah, I see that. This is the choice I made. Maybe you could make, but I love how you made room for both. I think that's really important to understand that that's possible.
Well, and I was at a speaking engagement, and someone in the audience was so antagonistic, and he was so offended. And I take questions, so I'm happy.
Sure.
Because I said that writing my story redeemed it. When anybody else is helped by my story, it redeems it for me. If I help one person with my story, it somehow makes it not so difficult. I'm not saying that doesn't take away all the pain, because there's still pain, but it redeems it. He got so angry and he started getting so combative. And I said, hey, I appreciate that's that you disagree. That's okay. And then I said, that I practiced out loud. It just came to me. I'm unoffendable. You get to have if that's offensive to you, I get it. I understand that doesn't offend me. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're asking me questions. Does that make sense? I mean, that's
absolutely. And maybe it brings up something in him that needs to be addressed. And maybe at some point that can be that awakening point. Yes. But again, you made room for both of it. And that's a hard thing to do. I mean, I think I can speak for myself, and there's still spaces I struggle with this, this is, but it's the difference between being able to name it and catch it and understand it versus just continuing to go down that same track with no change and carrying that load with you. So
because that load's a dead end again, right? It's a dead end. Yes. And so when people attack me on the book, I have chosen to give them space for their own healing journey, or for whatever that I did offend them. And I asked for forgiveness if I offended him, because it was not my intention. And I let that go, because you know what? I'm not perfect.
No,
I don't have to be perfect. And no. I do think that it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Because it was what I feared the most.
Yeah. And you had to put it into practice. Right there.
Exactly. And so my why, back to my why, is I desire people to read the fictional story of a lot of pain in my life. And it's not all true, but because I fictionalized it to make it a clean, easy story. I mean, I wanted a faster moving story, so I got to fictionalize it, but that they will see that whatever they've gone through, they're going to be okay. And there is hope, and there's redemption, and there is life after pain. And that is been my goal. Yeah. And I'm honored that my story has helped people. People have written me, oh my gosh, this is what I went through. This I never told anybody, because, and I say, I know. So one thing that was very painful in the book, and I never told anybody until I wrote the book. And this is true.
Wow.
So I'm getting ready it's going to be a bomb drop, a mic drop, because I felt like I wouldn't be authentic if I didn't share that when I was, in the book, I say 8, but it was really when I was 7, I was raped. And I was surprised how many other people have had this happen to them who have come and told me. And I am so thankful I put that in there. But I had an editor say, you didn't clean up the rape scene at the end. And I said to her, because the book ends when Summer is 18. I said, Summer at 18 was in denial. I'm 61 now, and I published the book last year. So it was at 60 that I could acknowledge what happened to me. Yeah. But you know what? Think about the freedom, Melissa. The freedom, not carrying that. And I was manipulated because I didn't know what was going on. And
sure, you're 7, you're a baby.
But because he was complimenting me and paying attention to me, and I needed that. So yes. I didn't understand what happened. But I love, think about the trauma, but I didn't get bitter. I didn't hate people. My joyful personality carried me. Little Summer carried me. Yeah. So I am very thankful that I got that out for public because it's helped people.
Yes.
That doesn't mean it's right. And I forgive that person who did that. I found out later he had a lot of issues because people that do that, it's right.
There's more to it. There's always more to it.
There is, and I forgive. That doesn't mean it was good, but it redeemed when someone comes to me and says, I've never told anyone, but that happened to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I know what that's like. That's a good day.
It is, because that is something, and I think in our generation, we're seeing more and more people talk about it. My husband has his own sexual abuse as a child background. So I'm very painfully familiar with that journey and what healing looks like within that. And I think it's so interesting that the editor said, you didn't clean up the rape scene. You can't clean up a rape scene. It is what it is. It does what it does. And there's been too much cleanup going on to make people feel like they can't talk about it.
Well,
there's so much stigma around it and so much shame, and no child can be held responsible for that happening to them. But because of the narrative around it and those kinds of comments, I'm sure they didn't mean any harm by it. But nevertheless, I love that you stuck to your guns about that, because helps other people to know they're not alone in it when they read that and are like, oh my gosh, me too. I'm not the only one. And it opens a door for healing. And we have to do that, because you can't carry that around unhealed and not. Those wounds manifest in so many other ways.
Exactly right.
And it's no way to live. It's no way to live. And so thank you for your authenticity and honesty in that, because that's powerful. And that's where we have these conversations, is taking stigmas off of things and burying things and keeping things secret because we've been informed in some way that it's bad or shameful or not appropriate or whatever, verbiage you want to put around it. But there has to be freedom to talk about it. And there has to be freedom to heal without shame, without judgment. And this kind of sharing opens that up.
Yes. And I am so thankful. I'm so thankful that writing the book, I had good editors. I wanted the best book possible. And I think to give her the benefit of the doubt, I think she thought since I fictionalized it, I should clean that up because I could clean anything up. But even though I fictionalized it, I could not write anything that would not have happened. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I was not okay with that. So I couldn't pretend that the character Summer was okay with that because I feel like that would take anybody that had that happen and say, okay, what's wrong with me? Because now Summer's totally fine. Well, no, Summer.
No.
I couldn't speak about it until I was 60. And then I spoke for the world. Right. But I think that was another layer. You talk about layers. Mm-hmm. It was a layer of healing.
Yeah.
It was a layer of healing. And I feel so thankful that in my heart, it redeems it as I've helped other people. So then when the male was standing up, the person, and really being hard on me and really relentless to the point where someone said, "Hey man, talk to her afterward. She's just trying to tell her story," or whatever.
Yeah.
I said, I didn't take offense because I know the redemption piece. When someone comes to talk to me, it does redeem my story. It doesn't make it easy and it doesn't make it perfect. And it doesn't mean that I wish it didn't happen. Right. But that's another layer of healing for me.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for how I was made, because that to be able to get past that and your husband, there's resilience. There's a warrior in your husband. Yeah. There's something. And then when you said, and I loved what you said. It touched me so much. I won't forget it. How he made you feel loved unconditionally and you didn't have to perform for him. He's a phenomenal man. Yeah. And after experiencing all of that, look at his healing journey. Yeah. I am so impressed with him. Yeah. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah. It really is incredible. And it really is incredible. It's really mind blowing to see the human spirit and what it's capable of in spite of really sometimes awful circumstances. And, and we've said the word resilience and overcoming a lot, but it's true. It's true. Absolutely. Oh, so good. And we've spoken about it, but you've spoken beautifully about accepting the layered aspects of ourselves. It's part of that journey. And until you can get a hold of that, and we've addressed it throughout this conversation today, it's going to be very difficult for you to prioritize yourself and see yourself as the valuable gem that you are. And do you have anything else you want to add to that? You've spoken to it beautifully today.
I just want to encourage people that are listening, women and men, that if you have been victimized by sexual abuse or anything, it doesn't have to define you. Yeah. That's not to minimize that it was bad and it was wrong, but don't stay in it. I feel like it could have defined me and handicapped me and paralyzed me. But instead, when you choose, and the big piece is forgiving, because, and that's a whole nother probably podcast. And you don't always feel it, but you make a choice because then you become free from the other person's darkness, right? Yeah. So then when you can do that, you're not. What happened to you doesn't make you a victim. And it sounds trite to say you're a victor, but it doesn't define you. Right. So don't let something that happened to you that you were victimized. I was victimized.
Absolutely.
But it didn't define me. Yeah. And I was able to be the phoenix and be reborn almost into a better version of myself, and then use what happened to me to help others. And anybody can do that. Yeah. It's looking at your pain, owning it, forgiving, and then doing the work to move past it. So my encouragement to anyone who's seeing and hearing and feeling like, okay, I'm uncomfortable because this is bringing up pain that's happened. Oh, this is just the start. Give yourself a hug because you are on your path and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I wanted to say too, because I know you agree with this, sometimes people mistake forgiving for like saying something was okay, or you have to be in a relationship with them. No. Boundaries. That's what I was going to say. Is like forgiveness is, and you said it beautifully, it's to free you. It's not for the other person, whatever the scenario is. It's to free you. And then within that, you've got those healthy boundaries within that. And so, but thank you for addressing that. Thank you for saying that's really powerful. Don't let it define you. Don't let it become your identity. You are so much more. You have so much more in you.
That's when it really becomes tragic. It's always tragic.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
No, it's tragic and it's awful. And we could sit and cry for an hour. And I've had friends that we just sit and cry about things that have happened to us. But it doesn't define us, because if it defines you, then it owns you. And then that's when it really becomes the most tragic thing that happened. And you don't want it to be victimized all over again. No. Do you know what I mean? You've already gone through it. So no, right. You're going to rise above it.
Yeah, I love that. So beautiful. Thank you so much for that. All right. In summary, in living out feel, finding empowerment, embracing layers, which you embody. And you've talked about this already, how it's affected the quality of your relationship. So we've touched on this, but I had a guest who's a friend of mine in season 4, so last spring, and Danielle Parks. And she said one of the most meaningful lines I've ever heard is she became her own soulmate.
I love that.
Yeah, I knew you would. I got to tell her that, because it takes the pressure off of the relationship to satisfy something that the relationship is incapable of satisfying. So would you say that you can, I felt like, I bet she can connect with that. Does that feel like something you can connect with on that in your journey?
That is so brilliantly, beautifully said. And there's so many layers to that.
Yeah.
Think about, we carry ourselves everywhere we go. We can't get away from ourselves.
No.
So you don't like yourself, because yourself's right. When you become your own soulmate, then frees everyone else to be who they are. Yes. And then you're not putting your expectations. Where I became really handicapped was I put my expectations on other people, on what I needed and how I need to be treated. But then you're always a victim, because no one can meet expectations.
And you're always disappointed.
Always disappointed. So when you become your own soulmate, you're never disappointed.
Right.
Because your expectations are always fulfilled.
Yes.
And you, again, I like being with myself. Mm-hmm. I like being with myself. I like just being, just focusing, just hanging with myself. So I think that should be, I think that should be on every person's to-do list. And I think it's a choice. I'm going to choose to be my own soulmate, because then I let my husband off the hook, who got in the car today, which he did nothing wrong. He was in the car waiting for me, but it didn't look like that, I thought, because I'm my own soulmate and I am not going to panic and turn into a horrible version of myself. I'm going to give some space. Right. So it really frees you. I love this quote because it embodies everything I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew it would. I was like, I've got to share that with her. I think she's going to love that. And love it. And Danielle doesn't live very far from you. So I have to introduce you guys someday.
Her name sounds familiar. I wonder if I know her.
We're down to our rapid fire. Name 5 activities that nourish you.
I'm putting forgiveness first. Forgiveness has been the one thing of everything that has nourished me the most. And that's enabled me to love myself, because you have to forgive yourself.
Sure. It starts with you.
It starts with you. And then you can forgive others.
Yes.
So forgiveness. What did I put down? And it just sounds that I was saying love yourself, but it's forgive yourself and love yourself. And then I love to laugh. I love to laugh. And this is good. I love to eat. People are like, oh, I don't really need it. I'm like, oh no, I need it. I love to eat. And I love to sleep.
Me too.
I love to sleep. And when I go to bed at night, I say to myself, you are going to get a great night's sleep. You're going to wake up feeling refreshed. I'm so excited to go to sleep tonight. And I wake up and I had a great night's sleep and I'm refreshed. Words have power and perception is reality. And I am even kind to myself going to bed, because I know I'm going to come down with the students and I need to be the best version of myself, because I want to be an effective teacher and give them everything that I want. And so that's a lot of self-care, but I do think the most important thing that I've done is forgive myself, forgive other people.
That's so powerful. So powerful. Thank you for that. 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
well, I hadn't thought about those. I saw that. I would like to feel, I feel like how I want to feel in the next 6 months is how I feel now. So that's why the question was hard for me. I want to feel how I feel now in the next 6 months, because today I feel joyful. I feel cheerful. I feel grateful. I feel winsome, and I feel benevolent. I feel inwardly so thankful that I have stopped being so hard on myself. Yeah. I've been able to be unoffendable. I've been able to not take things so personally. I've been able to write my book. Yeah. I've been able to put in fictional form some pain in my life that has helped others. I want to feel, I want to feel like I feel now, 6 months, a year. I never want to forget the lessons I've learned.
So good. That's a great place to wrap this up. So good today, Suzy. Again, audience, don't worry. EmbracingLayers.com is going to have Suzy's resources there, how you can get her book. Some of these things we've talked about that she finds helpful, we'll add into there as well. Suzy, thank you so much. This conversation has been everything I knew it would be and more. You are a light in this world. And one of the great joys in my work is that I get to meet people like you, and I get to talk to people like you. And then I get to share you with the world. And that is such a wonderful gift that I'm so thankful for. So thank you so much for being with us today. Audience, be kind to yourself. Give yourself grace. Know that you're valuable. Take the time to sit in the stuff and work through it. You are worth it. And there is light on the other side. And you deserve that. You deserve that. And again, EmbracingLayers.com for these resources. Get Suzy's book. I think it sounds like it's very, very powerful. And if not for you, maybe for a friend too. You just never know what people have walked through and what's going to be helpful and resourceful to them. But thank you for your authenticity today and your patience as we worked through everything, Suzy. It was an honor to have you.
Oh, it was an honor to be here. And I just thank you, because you were the best part of my day.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Right back at you. Same feeling. Oh, I love that. And I'm going to try that sleep trick tonight, because menopause and sleep and I are not getting along very well right now. So I'm going to try that and see if that works. So thank you for that tip. All right, podcast audience, we hope you found this encouraging. Again, EmbracingLayers.com for those sources. Take good care of yourself and have a great week.